anyone can start today with way more tools than what I had starting 10 years ago with infinitely less risk. I don't even think somebody has to even actually truly even go all in, at least financially, in the way that I did to have a lot of success quickly.
What's up, everybody? Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost here with a little bit different of an episode than we usually do. We actually got to go out to Las Vegas and record this episode in person with one of our friends and people within the real estate investing industry that we've both been following for years and years. But before we intro our guest, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I really enjoyed this interview. It's definitely someone we've wanted to talk to for a long time. I struggled with wearing long pants in Las Vegas for some of our adventures, but other than that, it's a cool city. So this was fun.
Yeah, it is very, very hot there, and having to go to nice restaurants and wear grown-up clothes is difficult for Dan Haberkost, who lives in, now that he's in California, basically a bathing suit and just surfs all day. Doesn't even work.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Exactly.
But today we had the privilege of interviewing Ryan Pineda. Ryan and I have gotten to know each other over the last few months. I've been using his social media ads within my own land business through his company, Lead Kitchen. Ryan has been involved in over $100 million of transactions and investments within real estate since 2010. He's a former professional baseball player and now an avid golfer, which he's very good at golf, and it's very frustrating to play with him. But Ryan has created multiple 7- and 8-figure companies within the real estate investing world, social media world, technology world, and he does live in Las Vegas with his wife, Mindy, and their 3 children. And without further ado, let's bring Ryan in.
All right, Ryan, good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we've been excited. We both listened to your podcast a lot. You went golfing with Mesa recently. We just interviewed Javi, your COO, and we wanted to dive into the last couple years, right? The real estate market changed overnight. Interest rates skyrocketed. Talked a lot about the challenges in your flipping company, Home Run Offer. Can you tell us about how getting through these last couple years has changed how you think about and approach your business going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, I got started just being ultra risky and, just being okay with it, right? I leveraged debt. That's how I got started, maxed out credit cards. And, I ran that playbook for probably 7-8 years and it was just fine. Now, did I have losses along the way? Yeah, but they were never significant. But yeah, when rates doubled, I'd never been a part of that. Well, no one has. No one's seen it double that quickly. And it was painful, man. Like I said, I lost a few $1,000,000 dealing with it. All my investors got paid, thankfully, but it was a big hit personally. And a lot of people don't even realize, too, it's like, oh, man, you lost a few $1,000,000. But you got to understand, too, from a cash flow perspective of how it kills you because, on those deals, we're expecting to make a few $1,000,000. And so when you're projecting to make a few million, you lose a few million. Now you've got like a $5 million gap. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was painful to navigate and deal with. And so I learned a lot of lessons through that. I learned that, number one, you definitely got to make sure you have enough reserves in your business. And thankfully I did. If I didn't, I would have been screwed. Number two, it taught me that you don't need to keep going all in just because you had to go. Like everyone has to go all in to start in almost every case. And you probably want to stay all in for a period of time while you're building. But at some point when you've achieved like a lifestyle or a thing that you're looking for, it's probably wise to start taking some chips off the table, to start being less risky and everything else. And I'm not saying take your foot off the gas. Just like don't have $20 million of hard money loans out. Like I didn't need to do that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so to that end, you're starting, you're broke, it doesn't really matter. You might as well go all in, leverage, and work yourself up until you get some traction. But how do you think about now going forward, reevaluating, right? Let's say next 3, 4, 5 years, market picks up, it goes well, but how do you make sure you don't repeat that where you get to the next level and stop it, evaluate, and take some chips off the table?
Yeah. Well, I've changed my entire business model, and this is how we're teaching people to do it even today who are brand new. 10 years, it's funny, right? Like you hear about like the old timer stories, right? They walked to school uphill twice, right? And it's like, yeah, we did have to do things a different way when I first started 10 years ago. I did have to max out my credit cards. I did have to buy flips. I did have to, take all these risks. But today, we're teaching a method that we call cash flow 2.0. And it's like, I just got done teaching on this, but anyone can start today with way more tools than what I had starting 10 years ago with infinitely less risk. And so I don't even think somebody has to even actually truly even go all in, at least financially, in the way that I did to have a lot of success quickly.
Something that you've built here is an ecosystem of multiple businesses where regardless of market cycle, you're going to have a certain amount of cash flow coming in. And I think that's what you've been teaching for a while now of don't worry about going out and getting a rental property that might pay you $100 a month. Figure out how to actually make money, and then you can kind of invest passively. So how have your own experiences really helped you navigate the education space to effectively and ethically teach people what really works today?
Yeah. A lot of people teach whatever they sell, right? And so it's interesting because when I started doing education, this was back in 2018, I just taught from the perspective of what I was doing, which at that time was mainly just flipping houses. It wasn't even wholesaling. It wasn't rentals or any of that. And then throughout the period, I started doing all the things. I started buying Airbnbs. I started buying multifamily. I bought land. I bought, so I've done everything at this point in real estate. And so, the coaching became very broad. It was like, hey, if you're just trying to grow as a real estate investor, come on in. Mm-hmm. And that's not typically successful for business in general, especially coaching. Usually you have to really niche down, talk about a method, and like that's what really helps people sell education, because it's like nobody wants the broad stuff. They want to, they want the secret sauce. And I was like, well, there's not really any secret sauce, guys. Like they all work. You just got to pick which one you want to do. And so, for me, that's how I built the company, the last bunch of years. But even during that time, I always shared what I believed was the best path in the current market. So during COVID, I would tell all of our students, I was like, guys, buy all your deals. Don't wholesale them. And, the reason was prices were accelerating so fast that I was like, if you just buy it in 3 months when this thing's fixed, trust me, it's going to make way more than you're going to sell it for today. And then sure enough, it's like $30,000 flips were jumping to $60,000, $70,000. Nothing, just fixing them up. It's just how fast the market was moving, right? And then I remember there was a period around 21, 22 when we started selling to Open Door and the hedge funds. And so we told all of our students, hey, just wholesale to Open Door and the hedge funds. They're way overpaying. And so that's what they did. Then when the market turned, I said, stop buying flips. Like, you don't want to hold flips right now. This is bad news. And so, most people started wholesaling. We started doing creative finance, innovations. And then, today we're in a very unique situation in time because rates are, they're still relatively high compared to where they were. Marketing expenses are through the roof. There's still quite a bit of inventory, so things take a long time to sell. And it's a very, very weird time. And a lot of people are trying to figure out, what do I do right now, this very moment? And for me, I'm already onto it. Like, and that's what we've always taught is like, hey, this is what I believe is the best thing right now. And so, for everyone listening, like just the basic philosophy of Cash Flow 2.0 is that you're not going to get cash flow quickly buying a rental property. Mm-hmm. It's going to come from a business. That's the quickest way to get true cash in your pocket. Now, what business to start? That's the question. And so I kind of defined 3 things that I believe give me that make, I'll give you the answer. The answer is an automated wholesale business. But the 3 reasons why is this. If I wanted cash flow, I'd look for 3 things. 1, I want massive returns, something that has infinite scale and upside. So we know that wholesaling is just flipping contracts. It could scale as much as you could get deals. Okay. There's no capital constraints. There's no construction constraints. There's no waiting for permits and subdividing and all that stuff. Right. 2, minimal risk. I'm super risk averse now.
Yeah.
So What has minimal risk? Well, the least risky thing to do in real estate is wholesale, right? You don't have to actually buy anything. Your EMDs are tiny, so very, minimal risk. And then the third thing is minimal time. How quickly does it take to get paid? How quickly does it take to actually get this thing up and going? And wholesale also has minimal time. It's the quickest way to get paid. And people can start marketing today and start getting deals tomorrow. So I just kind of looked at the business and I was like, if I were to build a business from scratch, I've yet to find anything else that's even close to this. And so I'm like, I need to go back all in at this. And so, we just started reevaluating how we ran wholesale, how we did the business. And, it's hard because, sometimes when you're an old dog, you don't want to learn new tricks because you've just been doing it a certain way for so long. But I reevaluated every step of the process and I was like, all right, you know what? Let's figure out what's a better way to do marketing. And so I figured out a better way to do inbound marketing for cheap. Then I said, what's the best way to close deals? We used to go on in-person appointments and all this stuff. Now we just close them, one call closes over the phone. Mm-hmm. Then I said, what's the best way to sell the deals for the top dollar with the least amount of effort? Well, we used to go to meetups and build relationships and all those things. Now we list them directly on the MLS with novations. Now we have things like Investor Lift where we can just go instantly sell them all. So everything about it is significantly more streamlined, scalable, and higher returns today. And so I'm all in on that model for the foreseeable future until it stops working.
Yeah. There's a tremendous amount of there that we want to unpack.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I want to ask specifically about is you mentioned initially when you got into education, you started out broad to a certain degree of just teaching real estate investing. And I think something that I've seen with you selling off some companies that you didn't want anymore and focusing and going all in on a few of these things. When did that deciding factor of, hey, these are wasting our time, these companies, we're going to focus on these 3 or 4 different things and go all in. How did you make that decision?
Well, I think it comes from just time and experience, so to even backtrack a little bit, I've been in real estate since 2010. So it's been 15 years. I started as a realtor, then I started flipping 10 years ago. I was also playing baseball at the time, and I actually didn't retire from baseball until 2017. So in all honesty, I've truly been a full-time entrepreneur for like 7 years. And, I had success at almost literally everything I started. It was crazy. It was like unheard of. I start flipping couches and that was good. Then I start flipping houses and it was good. And then I start a brokerage and we get hundreds of agents. Then I start a tax firm from zero and it goes to multi-million. And then, you do all these things and you're like, holy crap. And then I start doing social media and it kills it. And then education kills it. I was like, man, I think I could start any business and kill it. This is nuts. And then you start a few losers, and it's like start an e-com business that ended up being a nightmare. Did an NFT project that was actually a massive success, but it ended up leading into a bunch of headaches because of the whole crypto market. Mm-hmm. And then, you have some losers and you're just like, okay. And then, you also look up at all of it and you're like, dang, now I have like 8 things. And so even though they were, let's say, easy to start, and yeah, I did hand them off, inevitably they all have problems and different things that need to be addressed, or they all have different things that needed for scale. And so I just started to look at it all and I'm like, yeah, I could maintain all of these at like a certain level, assuming their markets all stay good too, which they don't, right? The real estate market changes, the crypto market changes, e-com changed, everything changed. And so it's like, wow, when that happens, do you fight a changing market? Do you leave it? Do you, there's lots of things you got to think about. But what I realized was even being, let's just say, a really good entrepreneur, there's only so much capacity and there's only so much creative energy to devote to each one. And so I realized that I was probably better off just focusing on the thing that I've always been good at, which is real estate, and really solving all the problems that I know intimately of a real estate investor.
Okay, so your first couple of ventures in entrepreneurship went quite well.
Yeah.
Eventually had a few things go wrong, got a few kicks in the teeth, as we all do.
Yep.
Now you're kind of refining and narrowing your focus really to what you know best and where you have the most leverage. So you have Lead Kitchen, home run offer and the education company as your main focuses. So tell us about what you're working on, where you're trying to take those businesses.
Yeah. So, I mean, in all honesty, all three of them are really kind of very similar because they're all complementing each other, right? So, you know, with Home Run Offer, I've had that the longest, and so that's just the house flipping company. And really, Lead Kitchen and everything we're teaching with, you know, this cash flow 2.0 model came from revamping Home Run Offer because I was just like, leads are too expensive. Like, what are we going to do? Because I can't keep running TV commercials and getting these expensive leads that don't convert as good as they used to convert. There's too many people running TV commercials now. This isn't worth my time. So I went out searching for a new method, and the first thing I thought about was Facebook because I'd already spent millions running Facebook ads on education. So I already knew how to make ads. I knew how to make reels, and I'm like, I've never thought about doing this for sellers. Like, I don't know why I haven't, but let's just do it. And then sure enough, you know, I spent the next bunch of months like trial and error, perfecting and all these things. And I spent hundreds of thousands building it out that eventually I ended up breaking even on, but we made a lot of mistakes, you know, along the way. And but I knew I'd seen enough to see the potential. I was like, we just got to really refine this with the ads, with the copy, with the target, all the things that go with it, right? So eventually we started having success, and you know, so I'm telling, just like any new thing I do, I always tell our students, and I'm like, guys, this is what I'm doing. You know, you should get looking at Facebook. It's great. They're like, how do we learn Facebook? And I was like, well, it's probably not worth it for you guys because you need a media buyer, a copywriter, you need editors, videographers, you need all these things. Yeah. And they're like, could you just do it for us? And I was like, how many of you guys would want me to try it out? Like, who'd be willing to be a beta test? And so I had 10 people. They were like, we'll try it. And so, you know, we end up trying it out, and I run literally my exact ads in their markets. And, you know, we see that there's just, you know, certain things that are going well. Like, you know, a certain group of people is doing really good. Others are not. We're like, okay, you know. And so we spend the next 3 months really refining that. And I realized that the leads were good, but then now people had bad sales process. And even ourselves, like we were still using our old way of doing sales. Like, hey, let's go on an appointment, all this stuff. And what we found was we were starting to lose deals between the appointment. And I was like, they're really like, so people are calling, you know, and what I realized was with these leads, people wanted an offer right now. Like they just do. They're used to like open door and these things where it's like, yo, I'll get you an offer right now to see where you're at. And so by us saying, hey, let's like meet tomorrow or the next day, they're submitting in other places and somebody's giving them that offer now. So I said, you know what, guys, let's just give them the offer now over the phone. Let's see what happens. And so we go through that. And then we figure out like, oh man, they still just want too much. And so I'm like, well, why don't we do novations? We've done them before. Like, let's just offer that out the bat. And then sure enough, they're like, dude, we got 3 deals today. It just started happening every day. I was like, holy crap. Like, we found the golden goose. Like, the leads are cheap. The people are motivated. And sure, they might want a little bit more, but we can actually give them it with innovation and everything else. Like, just lock it up right then and now. And I was like, holy crap. And then it becomes even easier because now if you do innovation, it's just on the MLS. You don't even have to find a buyer. You just sit there and wait. And you could do that everywhere across the country. So that opens you up to everything. I was like, dude, this process is way easier. Get high quality leads for cheap, close them over the phone instantly, put them on the MLS, rinse and repeat. And the new method was born and it worked. And so I said, I went to some of our other clients at that time and I said, try this method now. Sure enough, they start getting deals like gangbusters. And I'm like, dude, holy moly, we got something here. And, yeah, that's how it was all birthed, right? It came from Home Run Offer, trial and error the last 9 months. So then, you know, as I'm doing it for other people now, they're like, yeah, these work. And so I'm like, let's launch a company then. So we launched Lead Kitchen, where we cook up leads for you. And I like the name. The domain was about $1,800. And, you know, we ended up getting a bunch of clients like Mason and others. And it's been great. And now we're about to launch something called lead packs, which are a whole new way of doing leads for the cheaper, lower budget people. So I can talk about that later. But, you know, I'm focused on growing Lead Kitchen and generating leads for, investors of all budgets now. Lead Kitchen right now is an extremely high-end product, so you got to be willing to spend at least, $5-10 a month for it to work. But now with lead packs, people can start for as little as $250 a month. And then with education, it all just ties back into that, right? It's like, we're going to teach you this new model, this new method. We have the leads that you're going to need. We'll teach you how to work them. We'll teach you how to dispo. And so it all just ties in together.
Yeah. Well, and content is it feeds everything. It's the umbrella over everything, and it's powerful. So moving a little bit to the people side of things, with the changes, the pivots, I mean, you're good at adapting and changing quickly, but sometimes employees don't like that. So how do you, I think Javi said you have 39 or 38 people. How do you keep the whole team motivated and on board with the vision as it changes and pivots?
That's something I've had to learn over the years too. I used to be, in my mind, the moment I have a new idea, it's done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's go. This is going to work. Yeah. And granted, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to always think that. Yeah. If you don't have confidence in the idea that this is the best idea ever, you probably shouldn't do it. So, I think everything's going to work great. And, a lot of times it does, a lot of times it doesn't. Yeah. But here's the thing. You only need one to work really good. So we might try 9 things that don't. And I feel great about all of them. And then one of them does work, and we just let it rip. Once we find the winner, it's go time. And so, with the team, it's important to always be, optimistic and have a vision and all those. So that was never a problem. The problem becomes when you shift too quickly. And so, when I changed Home Run Offer's entire process, I just changed it overnight. I was like, no more TV commercials, no more of this, no more of that. Let's go about it this way. And it's a shock to the system because we don't even know if it's going to work. Yeah. And on top of that, even though I may not like the results that we were getting, they were still profitable. So what should have happened was, in hindsight, I should have kept that going and then had a budget for basically R&D to figure out that I didn't need to throw the whole budget at it to figure it out. I could have done it on a smaller budget and then eased them into it. And then they start to see success with the smaller budget. And you're like, okay, cool. We're going to transition now to this. You guys see it's working.
Yeah, I think it's always challenging where you want to communicate everything you possibly can to the employees, but also you see the path forward. You have the precedent that you've set yourself to have the success of knowing that your ideas are going to do well. But people sometimes can be one of the greatest constraints you have as a business owner. So I think you've done a great job solving for other people and within your own companies, the constraints of, hey, we're not getting enough leads. Let's implement this social media marketing strategy to get all these leads. What now with these companies do you feel like is your greatest constraint for growth?
Good question. Well, I think that whenever you look at problems, there's both internal and external problems. So externally, we're in a bad market. The economy has sucked the last 2 years. And, especially for real estate, it's been a very difficult market. And so you got to be able to differentiate whether you guys are having problems internally or whether it's an overall external thing that's causing a lot of the problems. And it just, your struggles are a byproduct of the market. I mean, clearly any real estate investor now with hindsight would say, a lot of problems are market related. Now, that doesn't mean that you have no internal problems either, right? But you just need to acknowledge that. And the reason I bring this up is because about this time last year, I noticed that in our education company, people were becoming way harder to sell. And I'm like, our salespeople must just suck. That's my first thought, because for the last bunch of years, we've had certain KPIs and people are hitting them. And I'm like, dude, it's taking twice as many leads to close the same amount. This doesn't make sense. Why are you guys not selling? And people just don't have money. They're low quality lead. And I'm like, we haven't changed anything. What do you mean? Right? And so at first you blame internally. And I don't think that that's wrong, because you don't know the macro until hindsight, right? But I watched this happen for about 3 months, and I tried different things to fix it. And by the end of the 3 months, going into the next year, and by the way, I talked to other people in the education industry. I'm like, you guys having a hard time? The problem is very few people will tell you the truth, even people who are your friends. And I'm like, and I'm transparent. I'm like, dude, it's like really hard right now. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, if it's hard for me, what is everyone else going through? And I don't say that to be like Eric, but I'm just like, we've got so much more than most people, and it's hard for us. We have organic brand. We have organic leads. We have a proven system. We've got events. We've got like way more than most companies. So if it's hard for us, I can't imagine what it's like for other people. So anyways, after 3 months of trying lots of things and getting frustrated with the sales team and getting mad at them and trying to redo things and yada, 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 I finally came to the conclusion that it wasn't them, that the market and the macro had shifted. And I was convinced of it. And I told everybody, you could go listen to podcasts back then, a year ago or 9 months ago. And I said, yeah, I basically think that most education companies right now are going to go out of business, especially the real estate guys. And, you know, a lot of them are friends, but I just believed it because I saw how hard it was and the old things weren't working anymore. And so I set off on this adventure to find the solution. And so I changed our entire business. And I went from just a thing where it's like, hey, we just sell high ticket, you know, 10K, 25K to, hey, you can join for $3. You could, you know, 97 a month. Hey, we got services. We got CRMs. We got softwares. Hey, we got leads now. I flipped everything and basically became a low ticket service company. And, you know, today, if you look at our offerings, you know, like our coaching program is not coaching anymore. I mean, it is coaching, but that's what it used to just only be. Now, if you join a coaching program, you get leads, all our softwares, CRM, coaching, everything. Nobody else has that.
Yeah.
You don't give you leads when you start something. Like, they don't give you all the softwares, and it's still the same price. And that's what's had to happen in order to stay in the game, because you have to deliver more because people are less willing to part with their money. You know, it's supply and demand. When money's abundant, people will spend it. When people get tight, you better provide way more value if you want them to spend it with you. And I just knew other people weren't going to do that, and they couldn't afford to do it. And so my prediction was true. A lot of people are now out of business, and most are out of the game. That's why you don't see too many ads for it anymore. That's why you see less events. That's why you see everything. And I actually believe, and you can put it on this podcast, I actually think it gets way worse next year for a lot of these guys in education. But nonetheless, that's an example of, I thought it was internal. I realized it was external, and it took time to realize that. Now, that being said, what kind of internal problems do we have? How much time you got? So,
yeah, it's always problems.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's always trying new things, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I had to do the last 12 months, and it was painful, was lean out. You know, when people start spending less and everything else, unfortunately, you got to lean out, you know? And not only did we lean out because of that, but we actually realized how much waste we had. And so it's like, I don't think we need 3 or 4 admins. That just doesn't necessarily, like, I think one person could do this. So things like that. And then also, too, when you sell off a company or get rid of one, then that staff is no longer there. And so, you know, that leans things out. Because like you said, you know, I think we have around 40 people now. I mean, at our peak, I think we had 100. Yeah. And so that was painful. And then also, too, I changed the culture. And, you know, we started being way more faith-based and way more outspoken and upfront. And, you know, it made some people like just even more rooted, and some people don't like that, and that's okay. No big deal to me. And so that was good. It was a pruning season, and so yeah, I think we had to lean out, and I'm really happy with where we're at now. I think we're the most efficient we've ever been with size. I think that our products are better than they've ever been. I think that from a strategy standpoint, with all the businesses, they all have great vision and strategy now that is innovative, and as long as we execute, should just crush. But I would say, you know, at this point, what is, like, I guess, the current things that I'm working on? What are some current problems to solve? I'm I would say cash flow is always a problem. Even this model's called cash flow 2.0. Because, right now, currently we're in the winter. So we know real estate's slow in the winter. So it's just what I always think about in Q4 is like, all right, we just kind of know it's going to be slow. There's less transactions, it's the holidays, people are spending on that and all these different things. And so, yeah, my current concern this quarter is cash flow.
Yeah, I think that's all of our concerns all the time.
All the time. Yeah, it is. It's an all the time concern, but yes.
Yeah, a few things. And first, your transparency is what makes you such a valuable resource to so many of us, where you're willing to share your losses, your wins, and everything in between, where you know that if you're in business, you're going to have losses at some point. And I know you do a really great job creating a brand of authenticity and transparency and having faith-based values that make you trusted, where you've never lost investor capital is something I know that you talk about and pride yourself on, which is something that we all try to do.
Yep. And by the way, that may not happen forever. That's been what it is to this point, but I've had some bad deals and we'll see. But, if I do, people will hear about it. It's like, yeah, it sucks. This is what happened.
Yeah. And you're transparent with it, which is what's really great. And I think that within this company that you've built, having your values front facing makes it so where you have a great match with the employees that, that come into the organization. But one thing with this brand that you're creating, this personal brand that you're creating, related to a lot of the things that we've already spoken about, Lead Kitchen, I feel like one of the best things about it is it's your face. His beautiful face. But whenever you're building a company to sell, sometimes it's challenging to build it whenever it's so person-focused. So how are you navigating that as you continue to grow and scale and potentially one day sell it?
Yeah, good question. I've talked about this a lot behind the scenes with the guys. Right now it's not a problem because we're not even close to selling it or anything. And then I think, too, it's just good overall for the profits because I think you guys are going to get better leads. I think that my face getting more exposure is always good for just the overall brand. So I think it's a win-win all the way around. Like everyone's going to get cheaper, better leads. My face gets out there more. Why not do it, right? The alternative is I stop doing it and maybe the lead quality isn't as good. And then, my face isn't out there, but the benefit is, now it's sellable. I'm not even trying to sell right now, so it doesn't matter. So I do think that in time we will find a way, and we'll test it first so we test all the ads on ourselves first. So I think what we will test down the road as we start to explore, if God willing, everything goes really good and it's like, this business is making millions and millions of dollars, recurring revenue, like let's entertain an exit. Then I will start that process of like, okay, let's test on ourselves. How good can the ads be without me? Let's go friggin' throw Javi on them or something, Let's get some legit people in the organization to start making ads so I know how to make content or good. And let's see how they do.
Yeah.
And we will see when that time comes. But even then, by the way, like a lot of people, I have another belief. I think that's going to be less and less important in the next 5 years. As far as it, let's just say they call it having key man risk. Because if you look at the most valuable brands today, they all have massive key man risk. So like Mr. Beast and Feastables just got valued at like $1 billion plus. That's Mr. Beast.
That's it.
What do you... Prime has KSI and Logan Paul. And now all three of them just came together to do Lunchly. And it's like, they're driving all the traffic to these things, but clearly there's still massive value. I think that you look at the Conor McGregor just sold his thing and he's the face, and George Clooney did it a while ago, and The Rock, and Kim Kardashian has Skims, and Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is heavily tied to Tesla and all of his companies. And so I'm actually not certain that it's going to matter in 5 years, because I think it's going to actually be, I don't want to say this because I'm not an expert on selling businesses, but I actually think it might end up being an asset to the business, not a negative, because there's always going to have to be a face regardless for a business. That's why Nike pays LeBron and Jordan and these things. They pay to have a face. And so let's just say, I'm lucky enough to one day sell it. I'm certain what would happen in the deal is they would say, hey, Ryan, yeah, we're going to pay you out, but you're going to sign a contract to continue to make ads for the company for the next however many years.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, down.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because it's a service-based business to a certain extent as versus a product-based business. And I mean, shoot, with AI and being able to say, hey,
Ryan AI.
I'm going to sell my likeness and everything like that. But having a service that eliminates your constraints of leads, which that's what it does. We've chatted offline about, the theoretical scalability of it into so many different industries, which doesn't make sense for Lead Kitchen because it's outside of the scope.
Yeah.
But having it as a fantastic service is the most important aspect of it, regardless of if you're wanting to sell it or just have it as a cash printing machine within your own company.
Yeah. And I don't even think about AI, but it's like, yeah, what about in 5 years, AI is at the point where I don't even have to make videos anymore, right? And it's like, yeah, no, you can use me. I'm not going to do any work. I'll say just have them say whatever, whatever you feel like.
Yeah, you might just have to. They can use your likeness or something like that for AI. Yeah,
that is going to happen.
Yeah,
right. And I can see that happening for Feastables and things. Right.
Yeah.
They say these guys go and exit, and they're like, yeah, Logan and these guys like, we have the rights to use you on posters and advertisements, and we can have your AI make content and other things. I think that's actually going to be very common.
Yeah. So I'm curious, from an outside perspective, seeing the kind of the consolidation and the focus really on those three companies now, I wonder, do you see a future maybe where it's just one company using your skill of marketing, some sort of marketing, speaking to the scalability of Lead Kitchen? Do you think that could be the case 2-3 years down the road where you are just scaling that to the moon or some iteration of that without the other companies?
Yeah. I think there's a chance one day it could be a marketing company. And I'll always buy real estate. Sure. Like at the end of the day, whatever I make in active income, I'll reinvest into either real estate or businesses or whatever, right? But yeah, I think that could be a thing. Honestly, what I think is a probably more likely scenario is if I were to have a big exit with Lead Kitchen. And let's even say I was like, I don't know, maybe like, Ryan, because they're so all intertwined, we want them all. Mm-hmm. And they give me like a crazy offer. That'd be amazing. If it was a significant amount of money, which it would have to be in order for this scenario to even play out, I think there's a more likely chance that I would just go into ministry. And because at that point, it's all like I'm square. I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish in the world of business. And granted, I still have a lot of skills and all these things, but my heart is for ministry. And so, even those are my three businesses, we have our nonprofit with Wealthy Kingdom. And, we're doing great things over there, but I don't have the capacity to really go light that on fire right now. Sure. And so I think that if money was no longer an issue, period, then I would go focus my efforts over there.
So two things I want to talk about there, but let's start with Wealthy Kingdom. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and where you're taking it?
Yeah, so it's our nonprofit for Christian entrepreneurs. So the goal is to bring the kingdom to the marketplace. So instead of trying to get people to go to church, let's just do like what we've been doing. Like, let's just create an environment where it's like, this is how Jesus, would want it. And so that's why we do at our normal events, we do worship services and we do, I bring pastors in. We've launched over 70 Bible studies across the world that are going every week. And we do just different events. And so, there's a lot that's I want to do there. But right now, it's in its infancy. It's only a year old. And
I'm curious your thoughts here. My dad was a pastor, grew up in a very, very, very conservative, old school Christian family. How do you think about money, or what would you say to Christians about money and building a business? And of course, there's guilt there for a lot of people. How do you think about that? I'm curious.
I think it's stupid. I think that Christians who have a poverty mindset don't actually read the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to be broke and live off nothing and all these things. In fact, when you start to read Acts and other things, you realize that so many people in the Bible had wealth. Solomon was the richest person to ever live. But on top of that, you look at even Jesus. The people are like, well, Jesus, he was a carpenter. He's a humble carpenter. He didn't have anything. No, he wasn't. Like, yeah, he was humble, but they had every resource in the book. They had crowds following them throughout his ministry. Judas, who betrayed him, was the treasurer. You don't need a treasurer unless you got money. And by the way, Judas was stealing from them, and they didn't even know. So there's no count that they ever ran out of money, and like had need.
Sure.
And then even you see the book of Acts, all these wealthy Christians who are supporting the church and helping it build. So, the poverty mindset of Christianity is just not even biblical, number one. Number two, I understand the problem of, you can't pursue both God and money. And it's true. I think that, Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and the rest will be given to you. And so it's an order-based thing. At the end of the day, if you seek the kingdom first, you ain't got to worry about everything else. It'll just come, right? But the problem is people seek money first. They seek fame and business and status first. And then they're like, oh, do I have time for God? They're doing it opposite. Sure. And that's what is sinful. That's the problem, because now money becomes the God, because that's what you're seeking first. The easiest way to relate it is like a real estate business, okay? So there's real estate investors here. Like, would you seek first, trying to go get leads, and then that will lead to sales and deals? Or are you all of a sudden just like, I don't know, like, I think I'm just going to go start talking to random people and trying to sell them. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, that's not the order. You find the people you want to talk to, then you talk to them. Mm-hmm. So everything in life has sequence and order.
Yeah. Oh. And I think going back to what you said about building this organization and your brand of leading first with your values, it's exemplified in this conversation right here. And I think people get caught up a lot of times around a lot of the rules that are, within scripture or just in life in general. And they try to navigate it in all these crazy ways and everything. And it's just like, if you live a good life and you attempt to do well and do good, and if God is love, then you need to go out and love. And whenever you have more resources, you're able to make a greater impact, as long as that's what the central purpose of it is, as versus if it's an afterthought, it's always going to be an afterthought typically. Yeah. And that's human behavior, and why building organizations with lots of people is so complex, is because you've got all these people moving in this different direction, and you have to be a shepherd to, corral them and to move where you
in the
feel like it should move. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're all scattered and he's going over here and she's going over here and I'm like, hey, where's everyone? Like, guys, we're over here. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought scripture into real estate investing too, which is I
do it all the time.
It's on brand. So I want to talk a little bit about the novation strategy and how you see that kind of operating and moving forward kind of in the future. We see in South Carolina, there's laws that have changed related to wholesaling and trying to make, wholesaling illegal. And governments can sometimes take your business ideas and squash them up and throw them away.
Yep, I've seen that.
Explain novation agreement and how you see this being a long-term successful business method or operation.
Yeah, so the easiest way to explain innovation for those who don't know is very similar to like a net listing as a realtor. So the way it works is that, if you come to me and you're like, Ryan, I want $400,000 for my house. And I look at your house and I'm like, okay, we would list this for like $440,000 as is, Clearly, as a wholesaler or a flipper, you would lose money. You're like, no, I can't pay $400,000. That's like almost market value. So traditionally, wholesalers and everyone else have shied away from that deal. They're like, no, I ain't doing that. Like this, I can only pay you $350,000. And that's why they struggle to convert, because majority of people want to sell. I tell this to people all the time. There's a difference between distressed and motivated. Mm-hmm. Distressed, there might only be 2% of sellers that are actually distressed. They're in foreclosure. They, are getting divorced. They got to sell tomorrow. Like, that's distress. And what's funny? Distressed people aren't even always motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get people that are in the worst situations and you're like, bro, you need to sell right now. And they're like, nah, they can take it.
They've given up. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like, are you serious? Mm-hmm. So they're not even motivated, right? Then you have the other 98% of sellers who are actually motivated. They're like, dude, I want to sell my house. Now, they're not distressed. They don't need to go take a low offer, but they're motivated to sell. And so at the end of the day, what I realized was, man, if you could cater to 98%, that's way easier than fighting over the 2% that every other wholesaler is. And that's where novations come into play. So let's just take for the example, this guy who wants 400, it's like, all right, if I gave you 400, this is literally our pitch. If I gave you 400, do you care who buys it? You're going to say no. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't care. I mean, as long as I get my 400, I'm good. It's like, all right, well, to get 400, I mean, that's pretty close to market value. Like, we're going to have to get a retail buyer. Now, let me ask you a question. If I could get you somebody, here in the next 90 days, and I guarantee the 400, you don't have to pay any realtor fees. You don't have to fix anything up. You don't have to deal with any contracts or negotiations and all these things that you're going to have to deal with, on our normal deal. Would you be happy? And they're always like, yeah, that's not a problem. We're like, great, here's the contract. Mm-hmm. And so, we have a contract and we have some different paperwork that's needed for innovation, which basically gives us the authority to go out and negotiate on their behalf. So we get this paperwork signed. We list it for 440. They've given us authority to do so. They're going to get 400K. And, buyers start looking at it. They make offers. We get an offer at 440. Okay. So now what happens is, we've listed it. We have a flat fee brokerage. We pay $400. It's nothing. Mm-hmm. We still got to pay the buyer's agent 3%. We still got to pay closing cost and maybe some repairs and whatever. But all in all, let's just say it's like 5%. It's like 20 grand. Okay. So, they're going to close at 440. We got 20 grand in expenses. So that's 420 now. And I owe them 400. So my spread is now 20 grand. And that's innovation in a nutshell. It allows you to still capitalize on a deal where the seller wants to sell. They want convenience. They're willing to wait a little bit, and they don't want to deal with realtors and all that other stuff. You're now able to monetize that deal. And that deal is so common, way more common than distressed, motivated sellers.
Yeah, and I encourage you, if you're listening to this, go take Ryan's Novation Academy. The paperwork that they've put together makes it so where it's actually a legitimate agreement as versus a lot of people that are trying to go under the table, because the most effective tactic in sales is give people what they want.
Just give them what they want. It's weird.
It's fascinating how it works. And I want to circle back a little bit to the education, because what you're doing is you're offering a turnkey business.
Yep.
You're giving them the leads. You're giving them the SOPs and systems and CRM to actually effectively manage the leads, the scripts to call them, which that's
all the contracts,
the disposition strategies, everything to do it. You have sellers that there's these 98% that you're focusing on. For the customers for that product, who are the customers that you really enjoy working with, that you're like, these are the ones that are going to take the system and run with it and become millionaires? And who are the ones that you're like, they're not worth my time, I don't want you to sign up?
You know what's funny about this is the worst customers have been the established big guys. And the problem is established big guys have their current way of doing things and SOPs and everything. And I'm like, hey guys, like, don't work those leads this way. Like, do it this, like, dude, our sales team is what they're doing. I'm like, okay. So
why are you here?
Yeah. Well, look, we'll still give you the leads, but I'm just telling you there's a better way to work them than what you're going to do. And they're like, whatever, right? So they go work them a different way, and then they get mad, and they're like, this doesn't work, this sucks, and they quit, right? I'm like, whatever, you suck. And so then the best people have been literally the newer people. Mm-hmm. We're like attracting, it's weird. And I told the team this was going to happen, but it's funny to see it play out. I go, most lead gen companies, they're going to go after the existing real estate investors, people who are already spending money doing deals. I was like, I actually think we're going to create a ton of new investors who are going to enter the marketplace, who have money saved up. And they're like, bro, I just want to I want to have my own business, but I ain't trying to go flip houses. I'm not trying to cold call everybody, but I do know wholesale. It makes sense. I just don't want to deal with all that stuff. And it's like, all right, cool. I got something for you. And I'm like, just follow this. And they're like, all right. They're literally following it. And they're like, I actually can't believe this is this easy. And I was like, I still can't believe it either, because I've been doing this a long time, and it's not supposed to be this easy.
It's funny. So when I hire new acquisition managers, I like to put them, if they're cold calling, in the most competitive markets, because it's almost like the ignorance is an advantage, where they don't know it. They don't have any preconceived notions. I like new guys that are good at sales but have no real estate specific experience.
Yep.
And then they just start closing deals because I told them they would if they followed the systems. It's the same thing. And so it's funny. Kind of to that end, I haven't really figured out how to not, 6, 9, 12 months in, they always start to get a little stagnant and a little bogged down in their ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any solutions there or anything to keep that kind of that newbie mindset where they just execute, where they don't overthink it and they just execute.
I tell all of our students this too and all the clients. We have a sales training call every Tuesday at 9. And I'm like, bring your whole team on the call. Let them get trained up. Because, it's kind of like a kid and their parents, right? If their parents tell them something, they don't listen. Yeah. But if, they hear from somebody else, they listen, right? And so, people will listen to me, but it's ironic because, the salespeople, they're like, okay, well, maybe Ryan's just trying to sell me something. But then they'll hear my sales guy, Michael, start to train them and teach them. And he's like, no, listen to this call that I did. I'm making money doing this. And they're like, oh, okay. He's the guy actually doing it. And he's not Ryan. And maybe they think, well, if it's me, then yeah, okay, I could do it because it's me. No, he's like me. Mm-hmm. Okay, if he can do that, he's working. We have the same leads. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're doing the same script, and he's getting results. This must work if I just follow it.
Yeah.
Did you start doing innovations yet?
We have a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense of it.
Were you doing it before, or you started doing it after?
Started doing it with your paperwork afterwards.
Yeah.
Of what we would typically do is our contract almost is a novation agreement of it's marketable, assignable. You have the right to list it on the MLS, and the seller acknowledges, hey, we're purchasing it for the intent of resale.
Yep.
However, I think with the way that you guys have created the paperwork of giving you legal authority to make a lot of these decisions, and you're very transparent of walking them through the process, it increases your legitimacy. It scares off some people, obviously, but they're not the ones that you want to.
They were going to be problems down the road anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been super effective. And Ryan, to switch gears a little bit as we move towards the end of the show, something that Dan and I have struggled with, and we're interested in your insights of you've made it to a certain extent. You've created some really incredible businesses. You've made a personal brand and a name for yourself. It's sometimes hard to find people that are, give or take, around our age, late 20s, early 30s, that you can have these meaningful discussions with.
Yeah.
What rooms are you going in where you feel like you're not the smartest person in the room?
Good question. It's the room next door in my podcast studio.
Yeah.
I'm serious. These guys come in every week that are just extremely high-level people that I get to interview. And I've said this before, but that's one of the reasons probably the smartest thing I ever did was start a podcast. Once again, I've tried lots of things. Mm-hmm. Some have stuck, some haven't. The podcast was one of the smartest. And, I used to do just solo YouTube videos and house tours and content. But the moment I started doing the podcast, it gave people a reason to come here. And so the fact that I've had a guy like Cardone right here multiple times just hanging out. On Saturday, I had John Maxwell right here in this room. I had, the week before, this other guy and this other guy. And, it's crazy the amount of knowledge that I've had in this room. Mm-hmm. And so the podcast has been the biggest platform to learn things. And I owe a lot of credit to so many of my guests. And by the way, you talked about, the paperwork gives you legitimacy and all that. Mm-hmm. Bringing people here gives me legitimacy to all these guests because now they come along and they're like, oh, you actually do a lot of stuff. You got people and a bit. I'm like, what do you think I did? You think I just talked to a camera all day? That's the least important thing I do all day. Mm-hmm. And, so it's helped. And that's what's built deep. And that's the thing too. You go hang out with somebody for an hour, 2 hours talking on a podcast. Important people don't just do that.
No.
On the normal. Mm-hmm. If I was like, hey, Grant, you're going to be in Vegas, let's just go hang out for 2 hours at the bar, and he's going to be like, bro, I got things to do. But if I'm like, hey, Grant, let's do a podcast, he'll be like, all right, cool. Because it's beneficial for him and for everyone. And it'll spread, and he'll get sales. I'll get sales. We'll get investors. It's just great for everyone. So that's where I'm learning the most. And, I don't want to say I've gotten to this point, but I've spent so much money on masterminds and things over the years, but I'm just connected now because of social media and the podcast. And so my philosophy has always been, if I treat one person good, they're going to open the door to the next person. And so many of my people have made introductions to other people. And then I just get random people every day. It's funny. I had a guy text me yesterday. I don't know if you ever seen him on YouTube. Eric, you guys ever seen him? He's like, he's a really big YouTuber. He's got like 17, 18 million. He's like on, he's very similar to Mr. Beast.
Okay.
And, yeah, he was like, bro, I just love your stuff, man. Let's connect. And so I got a call with him later today. And there's no agenda. It's like, we're just going to hang out and talk. And then I'm for sure going to invite him on the podcast, and like, we'll film and we'll build a deeper relationship, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And he might open the door to somebody else. He might open the door to Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
And, all that.
So it seems like a lot of these connections, which we love doing the podcast too. If you make friends with these people, you get to know them, and you're like, oh, they're also just humans too. And we all have a lot of the same problems. What about the person-to-person connection? Where do you feel like you find that out here in Vegas of, beyond the virtual, being able to call people that live in other states and that kind of thing?
Well, look, right? It's funny. You just kind of become friends with the people you're around. So it's like my best friends are all here in the office now. They're my employees. And what's funny too is all of our wives are friends now. And so our wives like all go to Bible study together now, and we do it. And like,
that's cool.
It's just funny. But then I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, it makes sense, right? Because a lot of these guys started as students, like Javi and Brian, and they were all students, right? And then we developed a friendship, and then over time there became an opportunity, and then, they became part of the organization. And then, it's like, well, if we all like each other, odds are we all married a similar person who also likes us, right? Yeah. And so let's put him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you're also married to a crazy person, like, we got to deal with these the knuckleheads doing this, and like it makes sense why they actually like each other too. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of it is within the company. Yeah, I mean that's honestly those are the people I hang out with.
That's great.
Yeah, I think Mason and I got along immediately when we met because we had the same problem of far too many friends that are our parents' age.
Well, and another point too is I just meet so many of our students. I mean, that's how I met them, right? Or just people at our events, right? Like we did the Bandon Dunes trip, and it's like, dude, all those guys were great.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, let's do more.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And, and then I got to see a bunch of them last week at our mastermind, and then you're here this week, and it's like, that's just how it starts. You do one thing together, and then, we'll all be in Mexico later this year, and it's like, I don't even want to know. Well, we're all probably going to be best buddies after Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. I wanted to backtrack. I know we're running out of time here, but when you mentioned if you exited for a big number, what you do, focusing on Wealthy Kingdom.
Yeah.
But what are you doing for your own personal investing? Because that money is just going to deflate, right? It's happening. So what are you doing there?
So I was actually teaching this on a workshop. So I think investment should be done in this order. Okay. There are 4 big investments. Number 1 in this order is yourself. So I think we all understand that you're only going to go as far as you know things, as you believe, have vision for your life. If you think that your capacity is making $100,000 a year, that is your capacity. Mm-hmm. So you have to invest in yourself first and get around people who think big, get around newer, bigger ideas and ways to do things better. So that's number 1. The second investment, once you invest in yourself, and this is strictly for entrepreneurs, okay, I'm not talking to the everyday 9-to-5 person. The second big investment is now in your business. So now I got to invest in my business, man. I need to get the infrastructure, the softwares. Mm-hmm. I need to start getting leads. I need to really get everything dialed in for my business. Because my business at the end of the day is my biggest cash producing asset. It's not my rentals. It's not anything. It's just literally the day-to-day business. That's what makes the money. Richest people in the world all own businesses. Yes. That's how they got rich. Okay, so second is business. Third then becomes people. So now that I've got a business and a machine, I got to invest in people now. I need to get more hobbies. I need to get more of these people, more salespeople, more great content people, because that's going to amplify my best asset, the business, right? So I need to invest now in people. Then fourth becomes the thing that everyone defaults to, which is, okay, now I need to invest in other assets that I honestly can't really even impact. It's like, can I control the price of Bitcoin? No. Do I think Bitcoin's going to go up? Yes. Okay, I'll invest in Bitcoin. Rental properties. Yeah, sure, I can control it initially and get it fixed up and buy a good deal. But after that, it just is what it is. There's nothing I'm doing really that's influencing that thing.
Sure.
Stocks, I have no influence over that. So I think those, let's just call them the more passive things, that's the last thing you invest in. Okay? So for me, what am I currently investing in? It's still the top three. Like, do I still buy rentals? Sure. Do I have stocks? No. So, I'm constantly reallocating resource into the business, into hiring, into more leads. That's going to make me way more money overall.
Yeah. I that was a leading question because I was the person that listened to Bigger Pockets and I wish 7 years ago someone could have said, no, start an active business. Maybe one house hack to get your overhead down so it's easier to start the business. But the rentals, the long-term buy and holds come last. Scale your income first. So by the way, I didn't even properly explain this, but that's the whole premise of cash flow 2.0. It's that, no, you don't buy that first. You build a business that produces cash flow. That's where you're going to go retire and make true money. And so then the question just becomes, okay, cool, I understand business is what matters first. So what one do I start, or what one do I buy? And that's the question. Yeah, man, when people ask about cash flow on like duplexes and fourplexes, I'm like, you don't have, it's a tax mitigator. It can appreciate, like there's positives, but the cash flow is at the bottom of the list as far as positives.
Robert Kiyosaki kind of screwed it for everyone. But the thing was, Robert was right. So I've been saying this too. I'm like, a lot of the things you've learned and read over the years, they were correct at that time. So, I don't know how many years that was written ago, but back in 2010, yes, if you would have just kept buying rentals in Las Vegas, $100,000 homes, they were cash flowing. They'd be worth $500K today. It was the correct thing at that time. Rates are lower, all that. That same home today does not work. No. You would lose $1,000 a month buying that same home. So same exact house, same exact strategy. Only thing is different is the time. Okay? Airbnb, another good example. I started this in 2017. I bought my first Airbnb in Big Bear, California. It's $200,000. And it was renting for $4,000. Dude, I was killing it. I was like, I'm going to double down and buy a bunch. I bought 10 of them. Killed it. Made millions on Airbnb in Big Bear, okay? Sold a bunch of them this last couple of years. That same house today is $500,000. And it still rents for like $4,000.
It's funny. So I was just there. And it seems like everyone's trying to sell. We walked all through the neighborhoods, and
everyone's trying to sell.
So many houses for sale just sitting there.
It doesn't make sense anymore. And Big Bear, for example, changes laws and regulations. And so they said, hey, you can now only have one. Now, I got grandfathered in, and they still hate me. But I got grandfathered in, and it was fun. But still, like, I look at the return, and I'm like, it's not worth it because I can take that money and do other things. But it's like, if same strategy, 7 years later, doesn't work. And even if it did for one, you only have one. Right? Flipping is great, but like TikTok, I was like 5 years ago, I'm like, guys, do TikTok. I was telling every investor, I'm like, guys, this is a crazy opportunity. You got to do TikTok. They're like, you're an idiot. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I do it, and I go get 1 million followers in like a year. And you start TikTok today, that's not the case. Same strategy, same effort, different result. Timing is so important when you're doing a strategy. And so if we're looking at 2025, this upcoming year, you got to not look at what has worked in the past. That's what I hate about people who teach only something that worked for them. As far as they're so like, this is the only way. You got to buy rentals. Look at me. I have 100 rentals. I have all this passive income. Great, dude. You've had them for 20 years, and you bought them when they were nothing. Would you do that today starting out with the prices, the rates, everything? No, that's stupid. There's way better ways to make money today, because not only that, there's new technologies, there's new strategies, there's new innovations. That's not the best way today. And people don't talk about that.
I think so many people in life or in the real estate community or the social media community have so much self-certainty of the way they did it was the right way, as versus this is what worked for me, and here's the context of why it worked for me, as versus I mean, I wish I had bought Bitcoin in 2011.
It was,
and and the thing is, I can still buy Bitcoin now, and if it's
I think it will still get you a return in the next 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But you ain't gonna 100x it.
No,
like it did.
And I think that right there is there's a difference between investing and creating a business, and you have to invest in your business. But what we talk about all the time, the three of us at least on the show already, of what we're focused on more than anything is cash flow. And you need to build these businesses to create cash flow. And one thing I want to circle back to that you mentioned that we didn't expand on yet was lead packs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
So that's an innovation. And what's funny is, okay, so like I'm a huge advocate for wholesaling. And by the way, it's like, dude, I was a huge advocate for flipping for all these years. And now I'm like, guys, I'm not even really trying to flip that much. It's like, you're the flipper. It's like, I'm not anything. I am a guy who just wants to do what's best right now at this time. That's what kind of guy I am.
Yeah.
So lead packs is interesting because there's never been a way for people who have very little budget to like really get quick leads and get high quality leads, because it was always like, hey, if you only got $1,000, you got to basically cold call and text. You got to pull data, and that's it. And if for anyone who's ever cold call and text, it sucks.
Yeah.
I've never met one person who likes it.
Yeah.
And you get cussed out. 99% of them don't even want to sell. And then the person you do is wishy-washy. There's tons of follow-up. Everything about it sucks. But guess what? You don't have a budget. Deal with it. I figured out how to solve that issue. So we have the new model with Cashflow 2.0. I'm like, okay, guys, we can all close over the phone, get inbound leads, do innovation, all that stuff. The cool thing about innovation is you can do it everywhere, right? Like you can do it nationwide. We're closing deals nationwide every week. And with that, we decided, I was like, you know what? I have like 20,000 leads in my CRM alone. Not even, we'll never sell our clients leads, but I personally have like 20,000 leads. And I'm like, my team does not follow up that good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
And I know there's money in them. I was like, you know what? What if I just repackage these? And instead of like trying to drip people leads, which is how leads are always been traditionally, what if I package them like a baseball card pack and give them a pack of cards right now? And what if it really was like a pack of cards where your next big deal might be in this pack?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I created something called lead packs, and it's at leadpacks.com. And you could buy a pack of 50 leads right now, and they'll be delivered to you instantly. And they're inbound leads. They're the exact same leads I have. We just don't follow up with them because we just don't have time. We have so many leads coming in every day. And I can tell you there's money. Ruby, I don't know if you heard this, but Ruby he was the first guy to buy a lead pack. He got a deal in an hour. He did. It was crazy. He text messaged all 100 of them. 10 responded, interested, got on the phone with one, closed him.
Yeah.
And that's a great conversion.
Yeah.
And remember when I told Ruby during golf, I'm like, you need to start calling these yourself, dude. That's a whole separate side subject. But the lead packs are crazy because, so we sell our leads that are 30 days or older, 50 of them for $250. They're $5 an inbound lead. Yeah. Nobody has anything like that. Yeah. And they've all submitted, I want to sell my house. Like they're not, they all have shown at least a level of motivation. And then we have our fresh leads, 50 for $1,000. So only $20 a lead. And these are leads that are within they're at a maximum 2 weeks old. And so, that's crazy, man.
I mean, that's not much more than paying for skip tracing. And
it's cheaper.
Yeah.
A cold call lead is not $5. When you actually factor it in, if I were just to go skip trace data, and then hire a VA and do all that stuff, it's usually like $30, $40 to get a lead.
Yeah.
And it takes time and management and all that crap.
Yeah.
Buy a pack right now. It's instant for $5.
Oh, yeah. Well, and one of the biggest challenges is the constraint of time, the turnaround time for, we send both a bunch of direct mail or have cold calling and
forever.
Texting. And we don't expect to make any money on a deal that we first mail for 6 to 9 months.
Yep.
And with a novation strategy and getting handed a lead that, hey, this is their phone number and their email, and this is the property they're tied to.
Yeah.
You can make money in, days, weeks, or a month or something, depending on how you lock it up, for almost no money at all. And
you're getting 50 of them right now, because that's another problem with PPL is people are like, doing refunds and all these things like, oh, well, these are, I'm like, bro, it's $5. Okay. I don't care if it's listed. I don't care if they don't answer. You ain't like, it's a pack of leads. Buy another pack.
Yeah. I mean, it's $5. Today we're walking around a casino and I put $5 in a slot machine. And
I know.
And I hit it a couple times. I was like, you never know.
Yeah. But look, like you think about it though, the gamification of it as well from a marketing standpoint. It's like, bro, imagine you bought, let's just say $1,000 of the cheapest lead pack, right? That's 200 leads inbound.
Yeah.
I don't care if 100 of them are on the market right now. I don't care if the other 80 of them don't even pick up the phone. If 20 of them respond back, yes, I'm still interested.
Yeah.
You're going to get a deal as long as you have any kind of skill.
Well, and I like this too because you acknowledge, hey, my team has so many inbound leads. We're a little lax with the old ones. For new people, that's how they get into competitive markets. Like if you are diligent with your leads, you can close killer deals that everyone else just doesn't want to deal with. We get deals 6-9 months down the road all the time.
And that's what I told them too. Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, my inefficiency is their opportunity. Yep. And it's not even that we're inefficient. We just have so many leads. Yeah. And it's like in 30 days, right? In 30 days, like it's going to, like we may have talked to them and they're like, nah, dude, like I can't do the deal, blah, blah, blah. And, it's like, dude, in 30 days, they might have a change of heart. So I think it's a great opportunity for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, we've spent so much time together. This has been fantastic. Are there any questions that you wish we had asked that we did not ask you?
No, you guys are very thorough. I would say the question you maybe should ask is, what do you like for you guys, I guess, whatever your selfish question is. Because when I'm hosting, I always have a ton of selfish questions of like, hey, here's a problem I have right now. How would you solve it?
How have you gotten over the challenges with raising capital over the past couple of years?
Good question. So twofold. One, I just changed the model.
Yeah.
So I don't need capital anymore.
Sure.
With this Novation model, I don't need to raise money. So number one, you could just change the entire model to not. So this is what I was talking about, right? When you're talking about a market, okay, I knew that the capital market on a macro level was going to get really tight. So the question is, well, do I keep trying to buy big deals and fight that knowing it's just way harder? Or do I just kind of not do that? Right? And so, I just started not doing it. And, we still have multifamily we manage. We bought a deal last year. We're not going to buy any this year. I just don't want to deal with it. It's not worth the battle, right? Now, let's say that it is worth the battle. That's my business. I got to raise capital. One of my one-on-ones, Daniel Kong, is having great success running Facebook ads to raise capital.
Oh, wow.
And, he's just running ads, getting people to opt in, to learn about this exciting opportunity, to park their capital for accredited investors. Actually, he's right there. Surprisingly, talking about
he saw his name and he's
literally talking about it at our mastermind on how he's doing it. That's why it happened last week, and so he's doing really good at it. So I could connect you guys because he could. And by the way, that is a huge part of network and everything else. It's like, oh, that's your problem. You know what? Like I ain't even trying to deal with that problem, but I got somebody who does.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and that's why learning how to build businesses is what the most important skill to learn and develop is, because the application that you have in Lead Kitchen, you're seeing success with what he's doing in raising capital, and it's a similar model, or at least a similar advertising skill. So Ryan, where can people find out more about you?
I think just follow me on social, ryanpineda.com. If anything we talked about, hit up you and ask about your experience and find out if it's legit.
Heck yeah. And it sure is, people. Well, this is Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost with the Big Picture Blueprint signing off.